So Donald Trump has perhaps learnt in the last 24 hours that this is not an India that is willing to simply put aside his distasteful, abusive and disrespectful tweets drenched in arrogance and contempt as just signature Trump, an unpredictable politician, and this is his style in how to get the deal, and this is muscle flexing and psychological mind games, because India feels disrespected. And what Trump has actually managed to do, which few have managed to do, at least in the last 25 years, is unite India in a very strange way. We're seeing members of parliament across party lines talk against Trump. We're seeing unity in the political system. You're even seeing the Indian army, which usually stays the hell out of all these things, tweeting sort of an oblique pot shot aimed at the United States and Trump, reminding an entire generation of how Trump's current behavior is an echo of why India has always distrusted the United States, the history of distrust that actually exists. Let's see what some of India's best commentators think about this. Tehseen Poonawala is a political analyst, Abhijit Iyer Mitra, political analyst, senior fellow of IPCS, both good friends, both very, very vocal commentators on Trump, American affairs and everything in between. Tehseen, I'll kick it off with you. Trump has managed to do something quite difficult. The India-US relationship is seen overwhelmingly positively by most Indians. It's a relationship and a friendship that has been on the rise, no matter which metric you measure it by. In the last 48 hours, the kind of damage that has been done and the way it has spread far and wide, obviously through social media as well. The mood has turned sour. It looks like Trump has completely misread India here.
Shiv, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the show. Good evening to you, to all your NDTV viewers and to Abhijit. I would like to thank President Trump because President Trump has done something that I think no one else has managed to do. Today, we don't speak as a Congress supporter or a BJP supporter, a Hindi speaker or a non-Hindi speaker, as a man or woman, as a North Indian or South Indian. We speak simply as Indians and children of Ma Bharati. And what President Trump has managed to do is sour and leave a bad taste in 1.4 billion mouths. This isn't about United States of America, and therefore I really appreciate your starting remarks because this is President Trump throwing a tantrum with India. And you know what? Donald is delusional. Let me put this in black and white. You're right, Indian and American relationships, because we share same values, we have certain shared ideas and goals, it was on the rise right from whether it's Prime Minister Narasimha Rao, Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji, Manmohan Singh ji, or Prime Minister Modi. They've all worked towards enhancing cooperation between these two nations. But let's look at the logic of what President Trump is saying. He criticizes India for being a member of BRICS, for example. But India being a member of BRICS is an advantage to Western democracies. He criticizes India for buying oil from Russia, when the United States of America actually wanted India to buy oil so that the global prices remain stable. President Trump is not just harming India, he's harming the United States of America. Today, one of the reasons that the United States of America is such a superpower in a unipolar world is because talent from across the world goes to the United States of America and contributes to the United States of America. And this juvenile behavior of this trade wars, which is not steeped in economy, but in kindergarten mathematics, gone wrong.
And it's dangerous, Tehseen, because you've got an entire sort of chorus line of cheerleading congressmen and congresswomen on the back of what Trump said about India, saying cancel H-1B, stop the H-1B visa system, make India pay, and all these belligerent things, which are very, very damaging and has had a chilling effect on relations. Abhijit, do you think this is all, smoke and mirrors, signature Trump, we don't need to overreact, but the Indian system is reacting. That MEA statement that came out yesterday, the Indian Army's tweet today, at a smaller level, the general mood in the system as well, shows that there are consequences to what Trump said.
There are always consequences to what Trump says. The thing is, our reaction's been very proportionate to the provocation. This man feeds off PR. His oxygen is PR. You're denying him that oxygen. What he really wanted was a call from Modi as a supplicant so he could say, they came begging, Girgidaye hui aaye, I don't know what the exact English translation of girgidaye ke aaye is, but something like that, which he could then pass off as a major victory. See, we've denied him that victory, number one. Number two, just remember about 2 months back, the way in which Zelensky was humiliated, not just once, but repeatedly. And today he's willing to burn his relations with India for the sake of that same Zelensky. I think we might be looking at, the advanced onset of senility and the kind of cognitive decline sometimes goes with Trump, because if you read his book, The Art of the Deal, this seems to be against his own art of the deal, the hypothesis he puts out in The Art of the Deal, that you have to understand what the bigger prize is and be willing to sacrifice the smaller prize for it. So congratulations to him.
Yeah.
Now, if we go by this need to avoid short-term pain, we would have never tested our nuclear weapons in 1998. We understood there was going to be short-term pain. We understood that would take about a year or so to overcome that short-term pain. We absorbed that short-term pain. And we did what we did, and finally we've been accepted for it.
Yeah.
Why do we think that, this time, India today in 2025 is not the India of 1998, 99. Remember, in 99, we had to send SOSs out for emergency weapons and things like that. This time, we didn't even have to do that.
Correct.
We're a much stronger economy. We can take the pain. I really wish, all the Rudalis would really stop being so Rudali in public. This is totally manageable. Look, the MEA is calm. The Ministry of Finance is calm. Nobody out here is panicking. Nobody is even taking this seriously.
Very true, yeah.
Very good reason.
Tehseen, the political unity that we've talked about, and I'll come to some of the Rudalis and things that Abhijit was referring to right now. But, apart from Rahul Gandhi, who kind of embarrassingly jumped on what Trump said about the dead economy, I think we can safely say that the politicians have kind of come together. You've seen Manish Tiwari, you've seen Aroor, you've seen the others pretty much speak in one voice as far as Trump is concerned. And that is perhaps the crown jewel this week of what Trump has achieved. Parliament speaking in one voice as far as Trump is concerned.
Because anyone who's mature understands we don't have a US problem. We have a Trump problem. The two are distinctively distinct. And Trump may get his kicks and his kinks by being called daddy. But India is a civilization that is 5,000 years ago. India existed, Bharat existed when there wasn't a United States of America, and India will continue to exist in the future. I don't disregard what President Trump is doing. Of course, he will hurt us in the short term. Abhijit is bang on. We export about $87 billion. That would hurt us. There would be some short-term pain. But the fact is, we have a spine. And we've stood up. We've stood up every single time since 47 when we had challenges. And we will continue to stand up. We will not go about digging for crypto, engaging people convicted in the United States of America for conning fellow Americans in crypto scams and putting them on the cryptocurrency, crypto boards of failed nations that export terrorism. And I hope President Trump realizes that that 3 or 4 people who've worked with his family can be engaged by a hostile nation and enemy nation that carried out 9/11 in the United States of America to mine his cryptocurrencies. But India will continue to survive and thrive. And just for common sense, why would India want a BRICS currency?
Yeah.
India doesn't even want a BRICS currency.
Correct.
The man is not even talking sense. I can understand if he's a legitimate concern. Even the concern is not legitimate. India would not want a BRICS currency. So what is his problem?
Very true. Abhijit, one of the things we hear very often in this conversation is, at least in the last 24 hours, is, India has spoken in the only language that a bully understands. But the other question, of course, is how much further can this actually go? Because, some very contemptuous things have been said. People are still in shock that Trump could have said these things out in public. Yes, there is one view that, okay, this is the art of the deal. This is how he negotiates. This is his entire brand of, muscle flexing before arriving at the kind of deal he wants. But how much further down the road can India go on this particular track with Trump?
Look, we don't have to go very far down the track, because remember, he is violating every principle he writes about in The Art of the Deal. You never escalate to the point where de-escalation becomes impossible. He's just making it impossible for himself to start de-escalating on this. And at some point, the stress in the economy will show. In that sense, I'm very, very glad when the US Deputy Chief of Staff went on some news channel yesterday and said, oh, they're immigration cheaters, and then Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now, these two people, they are known to be, the sort of pivot core, if you want to call it that, of the MAGA crowd, who then put out the talking points. Now, when they talk about H-1B, excellent. What I say is, if you're willing to take short-term pain, for all green cards and H-1Bs, tell them if they don't return to India within a month, you will cancel their passports and they will be considered stateless. What happens to America then? Are you willing to absorb that pain? And what happens to American tech companies then? What happens to the green card then? Because then America's choice will be, do you retain that workforce, in which case you have to promise them permanent citizenship anyway. Imagine how that rebounds back on the Marjorie Taylor Greene crowd. Right. There are many, many things we can do. I think what we're trying to do right now is act like a mature, responsible power. We're not going to respond to every dog on the street barking. We are not going to go down the path of horizontal escalation. We're going to stick to vertical escalation. And we're going to treat him with the contempt he deserves. Agar gali ka kutta bhaunk raha hai, you don't take a brick and throw it at it. You just let the dog bark, because that is what dogs do.
But one of the bricks that was thrown today, and everyone saw it, I spotted it in the morning. I actually thought it was fake until I realized it was real. It was a tweet from the Indian Army's Eastern Command. I was very impressed because the army has a wonderful social media kind of exercise of doing these throwbacks. This day, that year, this day in history, especially when it comes to war, etc. And to do with the 1971 war, they had a newspaper clipping today as a tweet saying this day, that year. And it was about how the US has armed and funded Pakistan to the extent of billions of dollars in the run-up to the 1971 war. Now, General Shukla is with us, a very well-known commentator on all of these strategic affairs. So I want to get his view. General Shukla, obviously this Indian Army tweet was not a coincidence. There's a huge context in which this tweet happened. What did you think? Part of the Indian response to Trump? Definitely some messaging going on here.
Shiv, there may be a context, but I would just like to labor on this point which Tehseen raised. And I think that is central to the challenge before us. He said, is this a Trump challenge or a wider American problem? So just 3 weeks back, I had gone along with Carnegie to Washington. And there everybody was assuring us, state, defense, American side, our embassy, that, the mercurial nature of Trump will have no impact on our relationship. And everything under the external mercuriality, if that is a word, was absolutely right. And look what happens. So therefore, I would urge the, Indian strategic commentariat to look at this larger problem. And what is this larger problem in my view? This is a challenge before Indian statecraft of how does this aspiring Vishwabandhu navigate its rise through this contest between a declining hegemon and a rising challenger. Now, see, the wider geopolitics must be taken into account. Why do I say the Americans are a declining hegemon? If you take the percentage of global GDP in PPP terms, which is actually a measure of strategic capacities, the Chinese beat the Americans today 19 to 16. By 2035, it will be 24-14. As glaring as that. The Americans have concluded that they cannot deter USA in Taiwan, and they are not willing to fight a nuclear war, which means what? I think the Americans have decided to walk back from Asia. It's not only Trump, it's the wider MAGA camp, may even be the foreign policy establishment, which means what? They don't need India to balance China. And so we are not so important in their strategic calculus. So what do we need to do? I think we need to revisit the metrics of our strategic autonomy.
What does that mean? What does that mean, General Shukla?
I'll just tell you. I'll tell you, in my view, what it means, and then we'll see what Tehseen and Abhijit think about it. What that means is this. If you take Sindoor, it was not merely about platforms. It was the wraparound technologies around those platforms. So EW, cyberspace, just take space, how it is becoming so material. Unless you have offensive ISR capacities like Israel has, We did well in Sindoor, but we were relatively blunt. And all these capacities in these domains, where do we get them from? The Russians don't have these kind of high-end capacities.
Yeah.
Their current plight means they can't even offer them to us. So America seems the only option, or at least till some time back, seemed the only option.
Yes.
But Indus, X, and Trust are done. So we need to revisit the metrics of our strategic autonomy. And one more point I'd like to make, which I think Harsh Gupta was making on your show the other day, it's a very material point. Unless we increase our defense budgets, build capacities internally, we will always be subject to this, exploitation by the faraway hegemon. The near hegemon is already a problem.
Let me get Tehseen and Abhijit on that. Abhijit, to you first. Autonomy. Focus on that. That's the larger message, no matter which way you look at it. And this is an opportunity to revisit, recalibrate, and refocus.
This autonomy message should have been drilled into us even in 1998 when sanctions were imposed.
I agree.
The issue is, we tend to treat defense as some kind of a silo. Remember, defense, every sector of your economy or government is in fact a complex reflection of how your society is. You cannot get autonomous till you start investing in education. You cannot get autonomous till you remove all the, the choking regulations that Indian industry faces. To this day, in fact, it's become worse with the sort of, powers that are the discretionary powers given to babus and things like that. For example, when Israeli companies were ordered out of China, the Israelis ordered them out of China. There were about 72 of them. All of them were ordered to set up in India. Not one of them set up in India because of the hurdles that they faced. Right. And that was over. This is since 2023 we're talking about. This is not an old story, by the way. So, we have to take that seriously because we will face these hiccups over and over again. I'm sorry, but we don't seem to be taking the long-term strategic vision terribly seriously.
No, I agree with you because, my fear also is, and I'm sorry to oversimplify this, but tomorrow if Trump says something nice and cordial and warm with a lot of camaraderie towards Modi and India, all of this will be forgotten and then we won't be talking about refocusing on strategic autonomy anymore. Quick, Abhijit, and then I'll end with Tehseen.
Sorry, Tehseen, to cut into your time.
Please.
Let me just give you a very simple example if it's tough for our viewers. Take, for example, in India, cars are taxed based on engine power. Right? As opposed to Japan, where they're taxed on size. That is why you have these mini Japanese cars like the Jimnys and Daihatsus and things like that. Now, the problem with taxing based on power is your industry never wants to develop powerful engines, which is why you have not been able to develop a self-sufficient tank engine at the moment. Right? It is simple things like this that our policymakers need to understand. That defense industry and the general public industry are very, very crucially linked at the hip. Defense never provide you with the quantity and bulk that private industry can, that the public market can.
Tehseen,
Shiv, I want to come in 1 minute.
I'll give you the last word, General Shukla. I'll just get a final word from Tehseen first. Tehseen, go ahead.
Yes.
Do you think we can navigate Trump? This is just a temporary speed bump, or it's an opportunity we cannot miss?
First of all, General Shukla, thank you for your services. It's because of people like you that we are free and independent. So thank you, sir, for your services to the nation.
Great pleasure. Thank you.
Two issues. Every crisis brings an opportunity. So you're right, Shiv. Tomorrow, Trump will suddenly have a Bonhomie and, long lost bros, and we'll be like singing praises of Trump and embarrassing ourselves. Look at this as an opportunity to develop. I won't take too much time. I'd give it to General Shukla. He joined us late. But listen, here's what we need to do. Hey, I have a separate ministry of Ministry of AI and Quantum. General Shukla is right. Your next battle is going to be in the space. We need to develop. One of the reasons China is restrained with us is because India has commendable space technology right now. But we need to develop that further. I myself am in various startups, and it's very sad. Abhijit is right. Babudam forced me to move. We are trying to build a quantum computer cooling system, we had to move to Dubai.
Yeah.
Because of Babudam. Only Babudam. So unless we don't get risk, we make our defense expenditure easier, we allow and encourage entrepreneurship and innovation,
Yeah.
we will not be the first world superpower that we aspire to be and that Indians deserve. So we should not be dependent on any countries. Look at this bump as an opportunity to be self-reliant in the true sense and have a 50 to 500 year vision.
60 seconds to you, General Shukla. Last word to you. A prescription. A prescription.
Very quickly.
Yes.
Yeah, just to underline 3 points which Abhijit and Tehseen both made. You know, one is when we need innovation like never before, regulation is coming back.
Yes.
And I've been screaming about this from rooftops. Hopefully some, think some good stuff will happen. See, just last week, US Defense Secretary Hexer signed an order operationalizing the DET 201. What is it? CEOs of 4 big tech companies, Palantir, Scale AI, I think Meta, have been inducted as lieutenant colonels into the US Army to drive innovation. They say we want high-tech expertise within the Army.
Yeah.
This point that Abhijit was making, very quickly I want to make this point, the relationship between military industry and civil industry. 2002, Chinese civilian industrial capacities were half of that of the USA. By 2022, they become twice. In consequence, on American admission today, the Chinese military industrial complex is 5 to 6 times more efficient than USA. The Americans don't have 7 days of missiles for a Taiwan contingency. The Chinese are producing 10,000 cruise missiles a week. So I wish we could, deepen those debates. What Tehseen is saying, what Abhijit is saying is so right. We have to really fire this Atmanirbharta and defense with innovation, energy, and enterprise, or we will just not get, this geopolitics right between China, USA, and all that's going along around us. It's such a humongous challenge.
And stop treating entrepreneurs as enemies of the nation. Entrepreneurs build a nation. Please build a nation. Tax reforms, GST reforms.
This is incredible. A conversation about geopolitics has brought out layers that I didn't think it was going to bring out. And that's one of the reasons why you 3 brilliant gentlemen were brought on this show. Incredible. I have a prescription in front of me. Anyone who watches this show is going to not only be able to navigate this complex, shape-shifting story with an unpredictable, whimsical, so-called most powerful man in the world, but this incredible opportunity that lies in front of us for India with actionable points, things that we can actually do, not some nebulous, philosophical, we must come together, etc. Real things we can actually do. Incredible. I hope India really seizes this opportunity. Thank you very much, Abhijit, General Shukla, and Tehseen, as always, for being with me here on India Matters.